Okay, so what if I told you a trader turned just under $11,000 into $42 million? I mean, it sounds completely made up, right? But it's real. And today, we're going to dive into how one guy, Dan Zanger, actually pulled it off.
Just let that number sink in for a second. 164,000%. He did this in under 2 years. I mean, that's not just a home run, that's a world record for stock trading. A number so huge it just doesn't feel real. Kind of like a glitch in the matrix or something.
So the big question is how? How is that even possible? And it's so easy to just shrug and say, oh, he got lucky. You know, a 1 in a billion shot. But here's the thing. There was a method. And what's wild is that it's actually surprisingly simple, but also way more demanding than you can probably imagine. So let's pull back that curtain.
All right, so to really get a handle on how Zanger pulled this off, we have to start with the tools he used. And honestly, the most shocking thing is how empty his toolbox was. He basically strips trading down to its absolute bare bones.
I mean, just think about how radical that is for a second. Most traders you see have their screens plastered with all these complicated indicators and overlays, right? Zanger, he just tosses all of that in the trash. His whole philosophy is that the most important signals aren't buried in some secret formula. They're staring you right in the face.
And this slide, this is the perfect way to see it. On one side, you've got the total chaos that most traders are dealing with. And on the other side, that's Zanger's entire universe. Just 3 things: chart patterns, price, and volume. That's it. Nothing else matters. See, for Zanger, a stock chart isn't just lines on a screen. It's like a living biography. It tells you everything about a stock's personality, its habits, its little quirks. He truly believed that if you could just learn to read that story, where the price is the action, the volume is the emotion, and the patterns are how it behaves over and over, then you don't need anything else. But, and this is a huge but, getting to that level of simple clarity was anything but easy. It was actually forged in years of just brutal failure.
Yeah, this was definitely not some overnight success story. Not even close. Before Dan Zanger made his millions, he first had to lose everything. And not just once, but over and over again. His entire method was basically built in what he calls the school of hard knocks.
And this timeline really shows you just how long and painful that road was. The spark hits him way back in 1976, but just look at this stretch. From 91 to 97, he makes a bunch of money and then gives it all back. Then he loses everything again 3 or 4 more times. It took almost a full decade of just intense, painful failure before that legendary run in 1998 could even happen.
So who was his harshest teacher? The market correction. That's where he learned the really hard lesson, that loving a company, believing in a stock, it means absolutely nothing when the whole market decides to tank. A great stock can still get hammered and drop 30, 40, even 50%. And if you're using leverage like he was, you're wiped out. End of story.
And this was the lesson that finally stuck. See, after these huge losses, he'd get frustrated and just walk away for a while. But then he'd miss the next big move up. The big insight he had was, you can never, ever turn your back on the market. You have to show up every single day, especially on the days that suck, because that's usually where the next big opportunity starts.
Okay, so we know his tools were super simple, and his success was born from failure. So what was the engine that actually powered the whole thing? It was an absolutely relentless, you could even say borderline obsessive, work ethic.
Get this, for 6 solid years, while he was still working a full-time day job in construction, Zanger was spending another 50 to 60 hours a week just studying charts. That is thousands and thousands of hours just staring at screens, internalizing every pattern, every rhythm, every personality of the market.
And his process was just a total grind. Every single night, he would manually scan 400 charts. And he wasn't just, scrolling through them. He was dissecting every little price bar, every volume spike. He was hunting for what he called the frisky stocks, the ones that had that high volatility energy. And then he would literally watch their heartbeat tick by tick all day, every day.
But you might be thinking, why on earth would you do all that by hand? Why not just use an automated scan? Well, Zanger's reason is pretty simple. A computer can only find a stock that's already moving. It can't spot that dormant stock that's just sitting there, coiling up like a spring right before it's about to explode higher. He believes that only the human eye, after being trained for thousands of hours, can sense that hidden potential.
Okay, so we've got simple tools and a crazy work ethic. But even that isn't quite enough. There's one last crucial piece to this puzzle. and that's the psychology. I mean, to handle this level of pressure and risk day in and day out, you have to be wired a very specific way.
Zanger himself says he's a total type A personality. He actually enjoys the adrenaline rush. He uses 2-to-1 margin not just to make more money, but because he says it keeps him interested, it keeps him focused, and for him, a day in the market isn't work. He calls it a vacation. He's so obsessed that he once said you need a spatula to peel his eyes away from the screen. This isn't a job for him. It's a fascinating puzzle that he just loves solving.
This quote just says it all. He's the guy who thrives on the edge, doing 180 miles per hour just inches from the wall. A tiny mistake and it's game over. He doesn't just put up with risk, he actually craves it. And it's that race car driver's mindset that let him make the huge, high-conviction bets he needed to get those insane returns.
So, when you boil it all down, the secret to turning 11 grand into 42 million, well, it wasn't some magic formula. It was something much harder. It was radical simplicity, forged in the fires of failure, and then fueled by thousands of hours of just relentless, obsessive focus.
And that kind of brings it all back to us, right? Zanger found the one puzzle that was a perfect match for his personality. The one thing where putting in 60 hours of work actually felt like a vacation. So the real question this leaves us with isn't how can I get rich quick? It's what's the puzzle that you are willing to get totally lost in?